Right, Samsung has just announced the Z Flip 5, the Z Fold 5, 2 new watches and 3 new tablets. And last week, I got hands-on with all of them. It's a big day if you've been waiting for the latest flippable and foldable phones from Samsung, or their latest Galaxy watches, or an update to the Tab series, because all of that stuff has been updated today. And last week I was lucky enough to be invited by Samsung to London to check out all of that stuff before release. As you'd guess, with all of those products and all of the details within each one, there's a lot of stuff to cover. So I've tried to condense everything I've learned last week into as short a video as possible, just to give you the entire overview of everything Samsung launched today. Let's get into it. First up, we have the brand new Galaxy Z, and we do say Z in this country, sorry, Z Flip 5. Samsung is calling the Z Flip 5 the ultimate pocketable self-expression tool. As with all previous flips, the Flip 5 focuses on pocketability, but it has raised the game significantly when it comes to that front display and some other key design aspects. The Flip 5 is 2mm thinner when closed, but it feels very similar to my Flip 4, and that is no bad thing. The biggest change, which hits you straight away, is that huge 3.4-inch Super AMOLED 60Hz flex window, which replaces the 1.9-inch version on the Flip 4. And that flex window is very functional too. It has all the usual features such as clocks and notifications, but the increased screen estate has enabled Samsung to add things which basically turn it into a fully usable smartphone display. So you can check notifications, but you can also reply to messages with a full QWERTY keyboard. You can check the weather, check your calendar, and add a huge bunch of widgets, including widgets from third parties. But one of the coolest features of that flex window is the selfie flex cam. This makes full use of the 12-megapixel wide and ultra-wide main camera system and enables you to use that display for checking yourself out. The flex window is clearly the biggest update between the Flip 4 and the Flip 5, and it is that thing that as soon as you pick up the phone you think, wow, this is new. And we did need it. That small cover display on the Flip 4 was okay for checking notifications, but a bit restrictive for anything else. There's also an updated flex mode which provides more controls for media-based apps when the Flip 5 is placed on a surface half open. And if you're wondering about the internal display, it's pretty much identical to the Flip 4, so it's still 6.7 inches and has that 120Hz dynamic refresh rate. Powering this thing is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip, which is a pretty obvious upgrade, but it's nice to see that Samsung is following that Snapdragon path. The other thing that Samsung was very keen to point out last week is that the Flip 5 apparently has much better battery life than the Flip 4, even though the Flip 5 has that massive front display. That does need testing, which I will do when I get my review unit, but if you're wondering about the price, it's £1,149. That's for the base model, and that's £50 more expensive than the Flip 4 when that launched. Is it worth it? We'll find out. Next up is the Z Fold 5, which has recently encountered new competition from the likes of Honor and Google. And at first glance, it does look very similar to the Fold 4, but there are some very interesting changes. The first is a brand new dual rail hinge design, which enables the Fold 5 to shut completely flat. Now, if we look at the Fold 4, you can see there's a bit of a gap here. You can actually see through it because it doesn't shut completely flat like a sandwich. The Fold 5 is much more sandwich-like. In fact, it's just like the Pixel Fold, which does shut completely flat. It is a small detail, but if you're the sort of person who gets very annoyed by this thing, it's important. The internal display is also brighter, so it has a peak brightness of 1750 nits versus the 1300 nits on the Fold 4. That main display is the same 7.6 inches as the last gen, but it does have smaller bezels and, as a result, a slightly reduced form factor overall. It's also 10 grams lighter than the Fold 4 and 2.4mm thinner. Just like the Flip 5, the Fold 5 features the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip, but it also has a 38% larger vapor chamber for better cooling over the Fold 4. When it comes to grunt, there's an increase in CPU performance of 18% and 32% better graphics performance. There's a bunch of changes to the OS as well, which should be well received, including an advanced taskbar, pop-ups, movable windows. The new Flex Mode panel has better media controls just like the Flip 5, and S Pen compatibility remains, albeit with a better ecosystem of cases. If, like me, you wanted a wider cover display on the Fold 5, you're not getting it. This is the same 6.2-inch display we had on the Fold 4. You can still use that cover display to take selfies with the main cameras, but there's now also a dual preview mode, which means you can review the framing on both displays when the Fold 5 is open. And I think that's going to be really handy if you're trying to take photos of your kids and they're not behaving, they're not kind of looking at the camera. You can basically point the Fold 5 at them, you can see them on here, they can see themselves on this screen, and in theory, it probably won't work, but I do like that feature. As for the camera system, it's pretty much identical to what we have on the Fold 4. That's no bad thing. I don't mind the photos this thing takes. In fact, they're some of my favourite Samsung photos. Again, there are price rises across the board, with the 256GB version priced at £1,749 and the 1TB version topping out at £2,049. So it's not a cheap phone, it was never going to be, but Samsung is doing its normal raft of tempting updates during this launch, including free double storage and up to £650 trade-in on your old device. Next up, we have new Galaxy watches, so we have the Watch 6 and the Watch 6 Classic. Samsung refers to the Watch 6 as the ultimate daily driver, whereas the Watch 6 Classic is intended to be a timeless timepiece design. And there are some fairly big updates, including 20% larger displays, smoother OS performance, bigger batteries, smaller bezels, and in the Watch 6 Classic's case, the return of that rotating bezel. Now, this was my first experience of that rotating bezel, which is 15% thinner than the previous version, and it was a surprisingly satisfying way to interact with the watch. I actually really enjoyed it. I do like the circular design of the Galaxy Watch. I always have done. I kind of wish Apple did the same thing with the Apple Watch, but that's never going to happen. But the ability to make your way around that interface with that bezel was very nice indeed. At the heart of these watches is the Exynos W930 chip, which promises 18% improved clock speed, and it's joined by 33% more RAM. So the Watch 6 and the Watch 6 Classic now have 2GB of memory. There's also in-depth sleep insights, including recordings of your snoring apparently, and a personalized fitness coach, which has insights such as body composition and personalized heart rate zones. There's no new sensors on the Watch 6, but it does still have the heart rate sensor, the skin temperature sensor, and fall detection. So it's still a very capable watch, and the thing that I really liked about it is those new watch faces, which were just really eye-catching, interesting, and more importantly, fun. Finally, we were treated to the Galaxy Tab S9 series, and hands up, I have never used a Samsung tablet in my life. And there are three versions to choose from. There's the S9, which is 11 inches, the S9 Plus, which is 12.4 inches, and the S9 Ultra, which is a massive 14.6-inch tablet. And it is absolutely colossal. They're all powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip, and you can expect 34% gains in CPU performance and 41% better graphics performance. But the thing that caught my eye is the fact that the Tab S9 series has IP68 water resistance, so it's the first Samsung tablet range to be technically water resistant, and, well, I just hope that Apple is watching. The S Pen benefits from the same water resistance rating and now features bi-directional charging via the magnetic attachment on the rear of the Tab S9. Oh, and GoodNotes is coming to the Tab S9 as well, which, if you weren't aware, is the most popular note-taking app on the iPad. When it comes to pricing, depending on the version of the Tab S9 that you choose, you'll pay anywhere between £799 and £1,699. But if you pre-order quickly, you'll get a completely free slim book cover keyboard, which is usually £199, and 12 months of Disney Plus completely free on Samsung. Again, are you listening, Apple? I would love to know, are you thinking of buying any of this stuff from Samsung? Let me know in the comments, and equally, if you don't want to miss my full reviews of this gear, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. And in the meantime, if you've still got some time, keep watching for a link to my full review of the Galaxy Z Fold 5's biggest competitor, the Pixel Fold.